Welcome back to the Grand Solar Minimum channel. Today is Thursday, April 25th, 2019. Hope everybody's having a great work week so far. Let's get right into our broadcast for the night. Space weather conditions first. Let's take a look at our solar wind speed sitting at 427.1 kilometers per second with a density of 4.7. And looking at our sun, we are blank once again. This is now 4 days in a row without a sunspot, taking us now to the total of 66 days for the entire year of 2019. 50% of the year has been spotless so far. We'll continue to monitor that number. Let's hop on over to the grandsolarminimum.com space weather page. And looking at our instruments tonight, solar X-ray flux, pretty much flatlining, non-active. The KP indice is maxed out at 2, and right now it's sitting at 0. Taking a look at the SDO in motion and see if we have anything on the horizon. And let me go ahead and increase this size here for our sun in the 193 angstrom. There is a coronal hole in the northern part of the equatorial region that could cause slight geomagnetic unrest here in the next 5 to 6 days, but nothing too impressive expected. That coronal hole is pretty weak, so again, there's a possibility for it, but we're not holding our breaths here at the Grand Solar Minimum channel. And also taking a look at our star, this is the green version here of this. When you start to see the negative 180, negative 190, that is the reverse side of the sun. There is missing data, of course. Well, we all know about that. But the areas that we can see right now, the sun is quiet. And there are no active regions right now that would indicate that we have to watch for any kind of possible sunspot development. So right now, our sun has had a couple sunspots last few weeks and has mellowed out over the last 4 straight days, and does not show any signs whatsoever of a sunspot. Now, they do happen at time to time. We get to witness their birth, watching them on the SDO in motion. But as of right now, you can see no sunspots on the horizon. Take a look at our TSI for April 16th, 1360.498. Now, I want to point out our last broadcast, we were talking about the drop in the TSI. And since then, TSM Solar Observations, formerly known as a Starman, reached out to me and reassured me that this was just a sudden dip, as he was showing me readings somewhere around the 18th at a 1360.6. And sure enough, this graph matches the one that he showed me on his own graph that he has. So his data is a little bit more updated than what we have here at the Grand Solar Minimum channel. But nevertheless, he was right, and the TSI has rebounded back into the range that we have been previously monitoring it at this current time. So, and there was something else I wanted to talk about while we were on the TSI. Oh yeah. Now, cosmic rays are nearing a space age record. Cosmic rays penetrating Earth's atmosphere are nearing a space age record for dose rates. This is a result of solar minimum, a deep lull in solar activity that allows deep space radiation to enter the solar system. Now, they've left an article here. This actually was first reported on SPACEWEATHER.com a couple days ago. But we're looking at the cosmic rays since 1964. This graph right here shows us where we are right now. We had higher cosmic rays, it looks like, peaking out in 2010. And right now, are we witnessing this still continuing to peak, considering we haven't quite yet hit that? 2019, 2020. So we're watching right on cue with these solar minimums, the increase of cosmic rays. It's right here, folks. Let's go ahead and highlight it. There's already 2 arrows. I'm going to add a third. Okay? Who loves arrows? Cosmic ray increase peak was right here, 2010. Right now, we are not quite at the peak, but we are rising. So we're somewhere right around here in this graph, if you had to look at things, in my opinion. So we could still see space age records, which if right here was previously set, and they're predicting this to go up a little bit higher as well. Now, what's the significance of showing this chart here and talking about cosmic rays? Because at the grand solar minimum, we do talk a lot about cosmic ray influx and how it influences sometimes precipitation and what we call these rain bombs that we've had in the past. So my point is, we're seeing all these deadly floods, all these massive rain amounts, and we also can correlate that during these times of increased flooding and rains, we also have increased cosmic rays seeding our atmosphere, cloud nucleation. These cosmic rays are highly charged particles that are basically like magnets that will attract more water droplets together more intensely than just a normal particle. So these cosmic rays kind of provide a boost, so to speak, on the amount and how much precipitation falls from these storms. So it's not a coincidence that we were showing numbers from last night's show or the other night's show about how the 2008, 2010 solar minimum is compared to the 2017 era, and the records that we're seeing right now, like for instance the 29 high impact snow events that happened in this previous minimum that we're going through or going into. But the correlation continues to be for space weather, solar cycles, and climate, and what the reaction is. And so we witness more cosmic radiation, and it's safe to say that we have also witnessed an uptick in floods all over the world. Not just here in the United States, but globally. Okay? But we'll get more into that here just in a minute. Guys, stick around. We'll be right back. It's a black screen. All right, so let's talk about, since we were briefly mentioning cosmic rays and their obvious effects on what's happening in the weather. We can also talk about Cyclone Kenneth hits Mozambique. Now, this is now the second cyclone that has hit this region in the last 6 weeks. And the significance of this is that Mozambique is getting walloped right now. Does this have anything to do with man-made climate change? No, absolutely not. But the damage that is causing in the floodwaters, now that has everything to do with increased cosmic radiation in our atmosphere, that these highly charged particles produce basically the juice that we need for these rain bomb storms. I mean, look, we've been talking about Mozambique since January 22nd. Tropical storm Desmond drops extremely heavy rain on Mozambique, leaves 9 dead in Madagascar. Heavy rains. How much rain did we get? They got almost 11 inches in 24 hours. Other areas got almost 10 inches. This is back in January 22nd, 2019. More flooding than what happened. Other areas received almost 8 inches in 24 hours. So we're seeing all these rain totals in a 24-hour period. Some of these folks get in a 2-month, 3-month period. And it didn't stop there. March 10th, we start to see the beginning of Tropical Cyclone Idai. This was just the beginning of what we thought was going on. 7 killed, 4,200 displaced, and 32,000 affected. And then as we fast forward 6 days later, death toll in Mozambique could surpass 1,000. Massive destruction reported. And I guess what's so important about this storm is that we still haven't fully recovered yet from the previous strong storm, cyclone, I should say. So where are we at right now? Well, let's get a stat report. Tropical cyclone Kenneth has rapidly intensified over the past 24 hours and is now a Category 4 hurricane equivalent on the Saffir-Simpson hurricane wind scale. Landfall is expected before the end of UTC Day, April 25th, in northern Mozambique. It says here at 600 UTC on April 25th, the center of the intense tropical cyclone Kenneth was located 90 miles east of Ingoane. That's what we're going to go with here. Mozambique and Moroni. The maximum sustained wind speed has been about 132 miles per hour with a pressure of 934. Over the last 6 hours, cloud tops surrounding Kenneth's pinhole eye have continued to cool, thus increasing further the intensity estimates. Current track of landfall north of Mozambican coast is expected by the end of the afternoon or in early evening tonight. And again, we were just talking about how we have not recovered yet from a die. Over 1,000 people were killed. It was considered as one of the worst natural disasters in the southern hemisphere. Kenneth will make about a landfall about 620 miles north-northeast of Adai's point of impact. And here's a pretty good map here of this low pressure system that's making its way. Here we have the system right here. It will weaken as it makes landfall and totally dissipate, of course, after it being over land for quite some time. But we see it strengthening as it approaches landfall and weakens as it once hits the land. So we can only hope that this area does not have to go through a repeat. There are 30,000 people right now that have been evacuated from this area. Here we are, Al Jazeera. Impoverished Mozambique still recovering from the previous powerful storm, which made landfall further south last month, flattening the port city of Berea and killing more than 1,000 people across the vast swath of southeastern Africa. This compulsory evacuation process will continue until we have people secure, safe on the ground. The INGC said it had supplies ready to assist 140,000 people for 15 days. The UN World Food Program said the cyclone was expected to bring heavy rains in the area with more than 600 millimeters of rainfall expected. That volume of rain would be nearly double the 10 days accumulated rainfall that caused the flooding in Berea during Cyclone Adai. Let me repeat that. That volume of rain would be nearly double the 10 days accumulated rainfall that caused the flooding in Berea during Cyclone Adai. So lots of precipitation. And why is that? Why is there so much rain falling from this storm? And it's simple. Or I think it's simple. And it's not a coincidence. A lot of this stuff is happening side by side. They're talking about space age records for cosmic radiation coming up in this minimum. Not the last minimum, coming up now. We are expected to flirt with the possibility also of breaking TCI temperature readings. 4.44, that's, not saying much right now. We've seen it as low as 3.6. But right now, the minimum temperature reading was 2.05, and that happened in February of 2009, the beginning of our peak. So we could see record-breaking temperatures in the thermosphere as well. And again, when you talk about grand solar minimum and the correlation of these space weather conditions, and then someone called you a denier of science, I can't figure out how much clearer the science is in this situation when it's all explained to you. And the science is pretty clear in this community. A lot of it has to do with space weather influences. I mean, let's think about it. The sun drives the climate, so it would make sense that cosmic radiation from space would also affect the climate. Highly charged particles. So you have these cosmic rays peaking every 11 years, and we see these gigantic floods, these massive storms, dropping double the amount of moisture that we saw in a die in 10 days. That has everything to do with cosmic radiation influx. And basically, it's the super fuel for rain from these storms. Yes, you can say all you want. There's tons of water vapor in the atmosphere. We got you. Loud and clear. 2016 in February, our temperature peaked at 0.88 Celsius above baseline. 2016. And our parts per million CO2 was 402 parts per million. Fast forward to now, where we're sitting at a 412 parts per million, but the temperature has dropped a half degree Celsius in just 3 years. So, to me, when you talk about AGW and the CO2 theory, and that's starting to fall apart now because that scale is showing us something different. And then you talk about cosmic radiation influx and how much more cosmic rays are penetrating our atmosphere, which is causing a huge increase of precipitation falling from these storms. And we also learned that, or some of us already may know this, but because of saturated soil, it has a cooling effect. Okay, so follow along with me. So far, we've seen increased CO2 that is having a cooling effect right now in the last 3 years. As far as the temperatures are concerned on the UHA, or the UAH, we're seeing a cooling trend with a weaker sun, weaker magnetosphere, more cosmic radiation, causing cloud nucleation. Cloud nucleation with increased precipitation is causing lots of saturated soil left and right. So if saturated soil has a cooling effect and cloud nucleation is on the uptick and there is a lot more cloud coverage around the world, that means more sunlight is being bounced back out into space because of all of the cloud coverage that we do have. And this all lines up. Everything lines up to what we've showed, the papers, the peer-reviewed papers, the science that we've talked about. Every 11 years, we have these conditions. This is what. So how can you deny science when we're showing you the correlation of what happens when we have an increase of cosmic rays and what happens when we have these in our atmosphere and our cloud coverage is increased and the saturation of the soil is increased? And weather.com is already admitting that saturated soil is has a cooling effect on our atmosphere. It's to me, I just don't understand how we could be called deniers of science whatsoever. And like I said, when you talk to people who support the AGW theory, you get a ad hominem attack. There was an article I'll probably share with you guys another night talking about the reliability of the UAH. And Dr. Scott Denning, I believe his name is, he was basically calling Dr. Roy Spencer, that their data is flawed and there's so many mistakes, but the articles on what's up with that. And the gist of it is that they point out their one error that they did make and their correction, and how that the RSS basically leads the way with NOAA and University of Washington, except those two agencies I just mentioned alter their data just a tad bit. One of the satellite systems that they rely on heavily for skin temperature only reads accurately when it's a clear sky. I just got done talking about cloud nucleation and how these solar minimums we see more cloud coverage. So how are we getting these accurate readings that they were showing on what's up with that? Some of these systems picking up a 0.24 degrees Celsius warming in the last 15 plus years. But yet we've seen cloud increase coverage twice in the last 11 years. To me, the UAH is at 0.18 degrees warming in the last 15 plus year. The other systems that are heavily favored are in the plus 20s. So it's not like the UAH is coming in at plus 0.2 or something that's really grossly underdone. I think the methods that they use at the UAH to get their temperature readings, I think they're way more reliable. Dr. Roy Spencer and John Christie have done tons of work, and I believe these guys have this down to a science, and when they have to make adjustments to their calculations, it's for the right reasons, not to help support their agenda of cooling. You know, Dr. Roy Spencer could care less what it's doing right now. He's just trying to show the world that it's natural and that CO2 has a very, very, very minimal effect on climate. It does not have the effect that the mainstream media wants you to believe. And the mainstream media is going to say, well, you know, Mozambique is getting, because it's hot over there, global warming, and the storms are worse during global warming, but that's not true. If that was the case, then why didn't the United States see more than 2 landfall hurricanes last year? 2. Major ones, I should say. This year, they're only predicting 2. 3 to 5 named, 3 to 5 storms, and I think around 18 named storms altogether this year. So if Mozambique is supposedly getting an increase of bad weather because of global warming, why is it not happening here? It's global, right? The temperature is increasing, right? So we should be getting stronger storms too, right? See, the theories just don't add up anymore. And the more studies that we're doing, the new research that we're seeing that's coming out is contradicting what the census is saying about climate change. And who's at fault? More and more people are starting to come out of the woodwork now to support the theory that CO2 theory is bunk, it's a hoax, and that this new science, these new papers that are coming out in the science community that's showing we are actually cooling. These elements that we have right now are forming one conclusion at this point. And so far it's reading cooling. Temperatures, cloud coverage, and then you have, of course, saturation of soil. All of those things are related right now, what's going on to cooling. So I hope this is an eye-opener that just because right now in the United States, we've got a lot to talk about in the U.S. too, but it's not just happening in Nebraska and Iowa and South Dakota where all the major floods that we've seen here from snow melt and everything. It's happening worldwide. Spain, Africa, Turkey, Iran, Saudi Arabia, India. In fact, while I'm mentioning India, we're talking about massive crop loss as heavy unseasonable rain and hailstorms hit Telangana, India again. And this is everywhere, not just, I'm not hand-picking out one area and just showing you all the headlines from there. I'm picking out literally every spot in the world right now. We have a serious situation where crops are being damaged, and each year that we've been reporting on this, we've seen crop damage increase, and now there is a huge concern for farmers to return to farming after the damage that they've endured in these storms in the last 3 years. We've reported several times here in the U.S. 50% of the people who have lost crops just recently here in Nebraska, South Dakota, and Iowa, farmers fear that they are not going to be able to come back from this. 50% of the farming is not coming back. And that's huge when you think about Nebraska being the number 3 corn and ethanol producer in the United States. That's huge. The worst affected are paddy and mango crop. Government officials said April 22nd, adding that damage will likely increase. More rain is expected in days ahead. The exact loss could be more, but our preliminary information says paddy has been damaged in about 30,000 acres, mango in about 20,000, and other vegetable crops a few thousand acres. Senior Agriculture said the damage was extensive. Mango trees were flattened due to the impact of hail and strong gales. Banana, papaya, sweet lime, green chili, lime, and other horticultural crops were also damaged, the officials said, based on initial estimates from affected areas and other districts as well. The storm also attenuated roads and caused several power outages. Here's some footage of some of the damage. No, thank you. But you guys can check this out at watchers.news. They do an extensive job at covering worldwide crop loss, worldwide weather, whether it's seismic, whether it's volcanic. Weather. Watcher.news does an excellent job of reporting on this at times. But we see a lot of these worldwide floods, and right on cue, last week, as the Watchers was talking about the unusual amount of landslides across the region of India, Southeast Africa, everywhere across the world, really, even here in the United States. As soon as they mention it, boom, 3 or 4 days into that mention, there's a headline almost every day talking about landslides and people dying in these landslides. So what are these heavy rainfalls and landslides and floods all have in common? And that is, science is creating this mess. When you have highly charged particles intermixing with water vapor, water droplets, turn into, like, again, we have an abundance of cosmic rays in our atmosphere, highly charged particles supercharging these particulates, water drops, making them super drops. I promise you, if we were getting these storms in 2014, 2015, they would not be as intense and as frequent as we're seeing. I'm not saying that these types of rainfall are not possible during a solar maximum, but you're not going to see the frequency and you're not going to see the amounts as big as we're seeing right now. And especially when we keep seeing new reports of space age records being broken for cosmic radiation, and TCI readings are about to hit a new cold age record. Everything is correlating with the science of the solar cycles and solar minimum and what will be a grand solar minimum here after solar cycle 25. Guys, we'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. All right, I want to close tonight with a little bit of local weather here. Guys, we know we've had storms, tornado, leave 5 dead in Texas, Louisiana. 2 people were killed early Thursday after an EF3 tornado hit Ruston, Louisiana. That's the worst area that was hit, by the way. A mother and 2 children were killed Wednesday after their vehicle was swept away in Texas. A train derailed in Fort Worth during heavy rains. The rain contributed to flooding that submerged several cars in parking garages at Love Field. It says here, storms continue to march across the South Thursday after leaving behind significant damage and killing at least 5 people in Texas and Louisiana. A mother and son were killed early Thursday in Ruston, in north central Louisiana after an E3 tornado ripped through the town of Louisiana Tech University campus about 2:30 a.m. local time. Here we have another victim. Names and ages of victims who were killed when a tree fell on their home were not released. Once again, that's one of the most dangerous things we see every day in these storm headlines when we're talking about severe weather, talking about tornadoes or high winds. Usually we have fatalities, people unfortunately losing their life because of a fallen tree. The fatalities were confirmed by Ruston Mayor Ronnie Walker, who told the News Star, "The situation is bad, real bad. We took a direct hit," he says. The fatalities occurred in a home just off Interstate 20. Lincoln Parish Sheriff Mike Stone said, "I've never seen it this bad in my 43 years. It's tragic, and it's going to be a while before we can get all this cleaned up." Governor John Bell Edwards, who traveled to Ruston to view the damage, declared a state of an emergency in North Louisiana. Louisiana Tech President Lee Geis said no serious injuries were reported on campus, where classes were canceled Thursday and for Friday. Louisiana Tech University has about 12,000 students. Said no students were reportedly injured. Trees and power lines were down in several places on campus, according to the Associated Press. The university sports facilities suffered the most damage. Our softball and soccer facilities are completely demolished. Our baseball facility is severely damaged, the university associate athletics director had stated. We're still assessing how bad it is. All three of those facilities will probably have to be rebuilt to some extent, if not totally. Those are not cheap, folks. Part of a concrete roof over the baseball grandstands was ripped off. The threat of severe weather prompted officials to delay the opening of New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Festival until 12:30 Thursday this afternoon. Despite some rain and threat of thunderstorms, all stages were running Thursday afternoon. Lightning from storm also suspended the first round of play at the PGA Zurich Classic in Avondale, Louisiana, just south of New Orleans, the AP had reported. The National Weather Service also confirmed an EF2 near San Augustine, Texas, and an EF1 in Mooringsport, Louisiana. Possible tornado brought down a tree in Union Parish, Louisiana, Thursday, including one that fell into a home in Marion, trapping the residents inside. Trees and power lines were down early Thursday from another possible tornado in Midway, Louisiana. So it's been an active season so far when we talk about tornadoes and severe weather so far across the South, and it's mainly staying pretty much in the South for the time being. So as we're talking about worldwide weather and Cyclone Idai, a frequent area that's been getting hit is Mozambique over here in the United States. We've seen the most severe weather across the Deep South: Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, the Panhandle of Florida, and now Texas getting in on here lately, not just with tornadoes, but here we have images of, these are vehicles that appear to be submerged in water in parking garages. Insane. Wow. Flash flooding. I hate to sound like a broken record. Cosmic ray influx.
But also poor infrastructure.
Well, that too. And we experienced, and Mari just made a great point, poor infrastructure here in Texas, these older parts. Go to cities like Buffalo. I mean, God forbid, I'd like to hear from people in that region. I know right before we moved from there, the infrastructure was struggling to keep up with the ice melt and snow melt from last year. Now, I haven't heard of any major flooding in that area since, but I do know that they've had some heavier rains. And with the snow and the melt that we've already gotten there, plus on top of with additional rains, I'm just curious to see if there's any more flooding like we had last year. But a lot of it had to do with poor infrastructure, and that's why we saw so much flooding in cities like Buffalo. So, again, good point. There's a lot of cities out there that probably need a lot of help with their infrastructure right now, and that would probably prevent a lot of these disasters. But I can only imagine the millions of dollars that storms like this cost when it comes to storm damage, insurance claims. It's going to be a very, very lengthy process here in the South. But unfortunately, we continue to see the same areas getting that kind of weather over and over again. Looking at the GFS outlook, this strong weather is going to continue into Friday. So Mississippi and Alabama, you guys are going to be the prime targets tomorrow. But heavy rain in the Ohio Valley and also the Mississippi River Valley. And moving into Friday, going into the weekend, this low pressure system gets going and it picks up a little bit of intensity as far as heavy rain going into the northeast on Friday, going into overnight. Friday, the south finally starting to clear out. High pressure settles in the deep south. And there is a bubble that does form here in the Atlantic Ocean where we keep out some moisture in the south for a little while. But look at this. Check this out, guys. We're talking about April 26th. Possible 1 inch of rain in the northeast, if not more in some other areas. And then look on the backside of the Saturday night. Buffalo, New York. You will look at snowflakes. And through the day, it will travel across the central part of New York into upstate New York by late Sunday. As that system clears out, we've got a clipper system that's skating across the Midwest. Look at this. Western New York, Erie, Pennsylvania. Erie, Pennsylvania, you guys stand for a chance of some 3 to 5 inches of snow on April 28th, at least. And this system will skate across the capital region of Albany, New York, go off into the coast. But I mean, we're talking about snow showers on Monday, April 29th, guys. 2 chances for snow in the Northeast for New Yorkers. So as one system exits, another coming in from the northwest, more moisture to the Ohio Valley once again. And then by 30th of April, we see another large low pressure system forming in the south, moving through the plain states as well, and back into the Ohio Valley. This one, May 1st, this one looks to bring some significant moisture to areas like Arkansas, Missouri, southwest Illinois, and Indiana as well. And some more snow showers. Yeah, believe it or not, the higher elevations could see at least 5 to 8 inches of snow in Colorado and parts of Wyoming. May 1st, guys. This line of storms will move through Ohio into Cleveland, through Buffalo, New York, across the capital region into the northeast. By midweek next week, we'll have another system spawning up in the south that could produce severe weather. So the good news is that the south stays out of the headlines for the weather for at least until the 3rd of May. So after you guys get through this round of storms, you guys could be in the clear for quite some time until about May 3rd, somewhere in the beginning of May. Now right here we do have an outbreak of intense storms, but it's past the south into the, like I said, the Mississippi River Valley, I should say, into the Ohio Valley by May 1st. But as we continue to move this GFS forecast forward, like I said, right around May 3rd, we see a little bit brewing, and then things start to get a little interesting here across the area. May 3rd, the south, once again, central Texas. Looks like a repeat of what we're having this weekend. More moisture for the northeast, and the concern here in Texas, in central Texas, starting on May 3rd, going through the 3rd to the 4th to the 5th. Now it's going all the way across the northern plains as well. And then things pick up on May 5th in the northern panhandle of Texas before finally this low pressure system makes its way out of Texas by the 6th. So we are looking at a situation of some potentially flash flooding and some high rivers for quite some time in Texas, Oklahoma, Nebraska, Kansas, where this stationary front will sit there and just drop moisture in the area. And then, of course, across the south on May 8th, before once again another system forms in the northwest and buries the southern states. Precipitation-wise, we look like we are going to have a healthy amount of rain on the 11th of May. So plenty of moisture coming back to the south. We do get a little bit of a break for a few days, but after that, we will see more moisture. Now, the overall, in my opinion right now, looking at this, we've got system number 1 through the northeast, system number 2, system number 3, system number 4, system number 5, and 6. So possibility of 6 decent rainmakers moving across the middle part of the country through the Midwest and into the Northeast. That's quite a bit of moisture. We'll have to keep our eyes on things of Pennsylvania and northeast of that as well. The Ohio Valley, Indiana, Illinois also stands a good chance of some significant rainfall over the next several weeks as well. But again, we're going to watch the situation down in Texas, where a high pressure system seems to kind of settle in and just rotate things around, keeping it stationary and finally moving out of the area after 3 days of constant moderate to possibly heavy rain. So we'll keep our eyes on once again, Texas already flooded, possibility for more flooding on May 3rd and beyond once again. And of course, talking about flood potential in Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, New York, Pennsylvania, and parts of the Northeast. That's quite a bit. Now, when we talk about all this rain, soil saturation, also that's going to delay work in the fields. But soil saturation is what else, folks? That's right, a cooling effect. All right, cooling effect, more cloud nucleation. Guys, I think you know what I'm going with here. The science is pointing in the direction of cooling. Yes, we will have a hot summer. We'll have heat waves just like we always do. But I'm going to go out on a limb right now, and I've kind of said it already once about when I think it's going to happen for summer. We're going to get hot periods. We're going to get heat waves this year. I really believe, though, once we get into September, we start to see temperatures shifting towards fall in a hurry. And I'm not talking about 70s and 60s, mid-60s. Possibilities that we could see some really cold air as early as the first week of October. I'm talking 40-degree temperatures are going to be possible at this point. In some spots, we could be seeing snowflakes flying already, possibly into late September. So each summer that we've covered this minimum has gotten shorter, and we've seen the winters grow a little longer. Now, was it Ice Age cold this year? No. There was a lot of snow mass in the northern hemisphere this year. But one thing I will say, there is a lot of cold records that were broke this year. And by the way, Australia is going through a very cold start to their autumn into their winter. Their temperatures right now are 2 months ahead of schedule. So they're really cold right now. So this year, we saw more records where, and Uncle Hans, letters from Uncle Hans pointed out that we had a lot of cold records from October of 18 through April 20th. And that is the number we were counting of the last time we saw a 60-degree reading. It's a pretty big span of days of not seeing 60 degrees. And some of these records were going back as 1890s. How many more coincidences do we have to point out to convince the world that our climate is changing, but it's due to natural cycles? It's due to what the sun is doing to the earth and what's happening with the ocean cycles. It's all natural. Go ahead and buy your electric car. Hey, save money on gas. That's fine. But, you're not going to change the end result of what's happening to our climate right now. You're not going to change that. With infrastructure rebuilding as far as green energy, solar and wind, we've already proven that that's more expensive, that the wind and solar only produces 10 to 40% of the day. So what are we going to do about the other 60% when we need to harvest power? And what are we going to do about cold days when it's negative 20 outside and coal plants have been banned and natural gas plants have been banned and we're supposed to rely on solar and wind to keep people warm in Minnesota? Get out of here. Not going to happen, folks. And tonight's broadcast, really, I just wanted to get into the whole science of why we report on this channel. And we report articles and news events that relate to what's happening to our climate and what we should expect in the future on a more frequent basis. And right now, I'll be honest with you, this is frequent enough for me, for what I'm seeing. Mari did a videos last year in something that's hard to keep up with all the headlines that's already happened for the first part of 2018. And I remember Teo getting back with Mari and just like, wow, I can't believe it's only been 4 or 5 months. There's so much that's happened already. And that was just 2018. So this year, I know you folks have experienced it as well. We have definitely seen an uptick and weather events, flooding events, catastrophic events on a level that we have never seen in most cases. And that's not coincidence. It's not because of man-made global warming. It's not because of man-made climate change. It has everything to do with natural cycles. And we hope that when you guys tune into these broadcasts, that you're able to pick up on some of the signs on what we're talking about, what we're trying to prove. No one here is saying ice age right now. We're just reporting merely on what's happening in front of our eyes. Forget about predictions. What's happening right now is proof of what we've been talking about for the past 3 years now. That's going to do it for me. I'm going to check the El Nino temperatures before we roll out. Mari, did you want to add anything before we sign off tonight? El Nino looks like no. El Nino is only at 0.524 above baseline. So right now, folks, we are officially neutral in my book. I don't even want to call this an El Nino. But
El no.
El no.
Wow, what an active chat. We have some awesome people in here, as always, but we have people worldwide watching us. TSM stayed up late.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. David from TSM Solar Observations. We have people in here from Australia staying up late. Mr. Morgan Kell. 3:30 a.m. He's up watching GSM. He watches our shows like after the fact normally, and he's joined us live in the chat today. So thank you. Nice to meet you. We have people talking like Lucas. He's moving to North Carolina and hoping
my
he
birth
can sort
state.
of dig in and get ready for prepping and stuff. He's going to be in a warmer region, so let's
plenty
see
of
what
rain.
we got. TSM was talking about the storm Hannah that's coming over the UK on Saturday. They're getting some moisture. Alfred in Alaska is sharing some prices of things. It's very interesting how expensive things are over there. $8 for a gallon of milk.
Jeez.
And TSM's like, might as well buy a cow.
If AOC will allow it.
So I thought that was funny. But Anthony is he lives in an area where one of the tornadoes actually touched down in Bryan, Texas today. So we're glad that you're here and safe. He said he's seen quite a few tornadoes going up and down his way. What do you think of that, Jake?
That's crazy.
I mean, he's describing in the chat what it was like for him, and it just reminded me of the video I did earlier today. Total uprooted trees and just the path, war zone, awful.
And all the rain they're getting in the south as well. It's making it even easier for these tornadoes just to rip these trees out of the ground when the soil is already completely saturated. I mean, we've already talked about places in Louisiana that's only seeing 1.1 days suitable for field work. Now, that's improved a little bit before this last batch of storms, but saturated ground, high winds, loss of trees for sure, and unfortunately it's killing people as well.
So yeah, hello to everyone in the chat. Thank you for joining us tonight, and that's all I have for you. I'm gonna step away from the mic.
Well, thank you very much. Mari is a producer,
you know me, always entertaining,
the mastermind of the Grand Solar Minimum website and YouTube channel, Mari herself. All right, guys, that's going to do it for us tonight. We appreciate everyone here tuning in to our show. We hope we will see you again very soon. Still not quite clear on the broadcast schedule, but we're getting closer and closer to getting back on a normal schedule. Until then, guys, it is possible we will have a broadcast this weekend. If not, we will definitely see you on Monday, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And of course, we will break through with any breaking news when needed here at the Grand Solar Minimum channel. All right, guys, that's going to do it for us. Again, thanks for tuning in, and we will talk soon. Take care, guys.